Hi, take three. What is today? That's right, it's this day in history. I drew a blank in take two, and so I had to start over again. Oh, craziness. I'm still at my pastor's house. I'm still house sitting, taking care of the pets. Right now I'm watering, so you might notice I'm wearing the same shirt I wore yesterday because I figured I was going to get dirty doing, chores, so I didn't want to waste a good, clean shirt. So, at any rate, uh, it's this day in history. It is a beautiful, bright, sunny August 1st. And I've got two whole pages of notes for today. And there's a lot going on August 1st. So, what is today? Obviously, it's August 1st, 2024. And what do I say? It doesn't matter about the year. It's not about the year, it's about the date itself. So, let's get into it. We've got half a page of birthdays alone. So, the very first birthday, the oldest birthday, is 10 BC. That's 10 years before Christ. Roman Emperor Claudius I was born on this day, and Claudius extended the Roman rule into North Africa. He's also the one who made England a province. He was born in Lugdunum, Gaul, which is present day Lyon, France. We fast forward to 1744. Um, Jean Baptiste Lamarck was born. And Jean Baptiste Lamarck was a biologist. He was best known for his theory about acquired traits being hereditary. So, in other words, if you have similar mannerisms as your parents, his theory was that you actually inherited those traits from your parents, which makes sense. If you're a byproduct of the union between your parents, obviously you're going to pick up mannerisms. You're going to pick up traits. You're going to pick up likenesses of those who begot you. That means had you. um, we fast forward to 1818. We talked about Maria Mitchell. We talked about Maria Mitchell in June because that's when she had passed away. Well, here's her birthday. And Maria Mitchell was born in 1818, and she was an American astronomer. She was the first female astronomer, and she died in, what was it, 1889? I think it was. I think it was something like that. I think she died at the age of 79 or something like that, or 71. I can't remember. Anyway, the following year, Herman Melville, an American author, was born. And you might know his work if you've ever heard of the book, novel, later turned into movies, Moby Dick. He was the author of Moby Dick. He was born on this day in 1819. In 1920, we're now up to the 20th century. 1920, Henrietta Lacks is born. Now, who is Henrietta Lacks? Henrietta Lacks was an American medical patient. And what was so special about her is that she died in 51, I think it was. I think she died in the 50s. I looked her up, and I forget. I thought I would remember what year it was that she passed away, but she had cervical cancer. That's kind of near and dear to me because my stepsister died of well, she died of an inoperable brain tumor, but that brain tumor was caused by cervical cancer that she had that had metastasized into that brain tumor. So, why is Henrietta Lacks important? Because her cancer cells were used for research, and by studying those cancer cells, they made breakthroughs in understanding cervical cancer and creating treatments for. So, unfortunately, she died young, but her death served a higher purpose in enabling medical science to find ways of combating effectively that which my sister had. So, um, In 1932, we see the birth of Mayor uh, Kahane. He also, here in the United States, also went by the name Michael King. Um, it's said here that he was an Israeli political extremist and rabbi. And I'm like, okay, Britannica is going a little off the deep end, whatever. They might be. And then I read up on him, like, no, he actually was. He really was an extremist. He was born here in the United States. He was very radicalized. He joined Jewish youth groups youth movements. He um, had a he engaged in a bombing, and because of that, he left the United States and went to Israel, where he joined up some other militant groups there. In fact, he got elected into their parliament, but then he was banned because of his overtly racist, and he's pro-Jew. He was very pro-United States during the Vietnam War. He was very vocal about supporting the United States efforts in Vietnam. He was banned for being very racist and very militant. I guess he was just too much for the Israelis to handle, and so he ended up coming back home to the United States, and kind of lived out the remainder of his life. But he was a third generation rabbi. His father was a rabbi. His grandfather was a rabbi. Unfortunately, I don't think he really caught on to what it meant to exercise one's faith, because he was he started up movements that never again. It was in response to the Holocaust. So he was very passionately moved to never see the Jewish people ever be taken advantage, beaten down, what have you. They would never be victims again, as far as he was concerned. In 1936, I think I'm pronouncing this right, Yves Saint Laurent is a French designer, born on this day in 1936, same year my stepdad was born. 1965, we see the birth of Sam Mendes. That was an English director. So now we get into the good stuff, the nitty-gritty of today's history. It's 1714. Queen Anne, she's the last Stuart ruler of England. She dies at the age of 49, my age right now. In 1876, Colorado is admitted into the Union as the 38th state, so happy birthday, Colorado. Perhaps I should have put that under their birthdays as well. 1936, I take pride in this one. I love this one. It's so great. I always had to laugh when I hear about the 1936 Olympic Games. The 1936 Summer Olympic Games were held in Berlin, and Hitler was the chancellor, and he wanted to show the whole world how superior the Aryan nation is. How Aryans are so superior to everybody else. And so when it came to I don't know which running competition it was, but so, the Aryans are so superior, right? Yet it's African-American athlete Jesse Owens who soundly beat the favored German athlete. And I've seen old film footage of that. He soundly beat them. It wasn't even close. I mean, they were running around the track and he beat them. And so much egg on Hitler's face. Hitler refused to shake Jesse Owens' hand. It was, he was humiliated, publicly embarrassed, the whole world watching. And I'm just like, good. I know I should never delight in the downfall of enemies. The Bible says not to do that. But, I take a little bit of pride there in his getting owned like that. So I might be bad for that, but it was a good day in history. On this day in 1940, a book is published. This book is called Why England Slept. and it was authored by future President John F. Kennedy, a distant relative of mine. So I knew that Kennedy had penned a book, Profiles in Courage, which came, like way later. I didn't know that he had written another book. So it's on this day in 1940 that Why England Slept was published. In 1944, we actually have two historical events, and they're both kind of related as it deals with World War II and Nazi oppression. The first is it's on this day, August 1st, 1944, is the final entry in Anne Frank's diary. It's the final entry that's recorded in Anne Frank's diary. So if you know the story of the diary of Anne Frank, she and her family were a Jewish family that were in hiding for 2 years in the Netherlands. They were in hiding for 2 years before they were discovered by the Germans, and then they were whisked away, and then unfortunately they were all killed in concentration camps. Not one of them in that family survived, but her diary did, and Nazi hunter Simon Wiesenthal made it a point to have her diary, I believe he was the catalyst of that, to have her diary published so that the whole world could understand what life was like from the perspective of the Jew during the Nazi occupation and oppression of the Jewish people. So in that, it's also on this day in 1944, there was a Warsaw Uprising. So the Poles decided they're going to, the Polish underground is going to fight back against the Germans, and they want to kick the snot out of the Germans. They want to uproot them, get rid of them. They want to seize control of their cities. They want to take control before the Russians come, because the Russians are coming, and they want to have, I don't know if they could have, what was going to happen when the Russians came in, because, what ended up happening with the Poland is that, it got screwed over big time by both sides. Land taken, and, it is just, the victors of war go, the spoils go to the victor in war, is what I'm trying to say. So, nations' borders were recarved and redrawn after the end of the war. It was like, oh, this is my payment for, Russians. I'm taking this part for my actions in this war. Allies are like, well, okay, we're taking this part, and it's just free for all. But at any rate, the Poles ran out of supplies, and unfortunately, they had to surrender in October, and so I imagine there was major retribution for that from the Germans until the Soviets came and liberated them, or if you can call it liberation. I don't know. I knew a Polish guy years ago, and he was born in 1939, so he could remember, a little bit of late war. But growing up, the sentiment, Poles don't like Germans because of what they did, and they don't like the Russians also for what they did. Though the Poles are they were between a rock and a hard place, and there's a sentiment there that they dislike both Germans and Russians, and you can't really blame them. So fast forward now, we go to 1966. Charles Whitman, he was a University of Texas student and ex-Marine. He fired upon crowds from the clock tower on that campus. He killed 14 people. He wounded 31. One of those 31 actually died years later due to complications of the wounds that they had received. It was considered one of the worst mass murders in public in U.S. history. It certainly was at that time. Just bad stuff. 1980, Icelandic teacher and politician, I'm going to butcher this, I apologize, Vigdis Finnbogadóttir became president of Ireland. or not Ireland, Iceland, excuse me. But more importantly, she became the very first woman in the world to be elected to a state head position, meaning president, premier, blah blah blah, in a let me get this right, in a national election. Very first person to be elected as a president in a national election. Very first woman to be elected in a national elected. So I mean that's huge. A year later, we have MTV debuting. I remember watching MTV when I was a kid. The very first video that they aired on MTV was "Video Killed the Radio Star" by the Buggles. It'd be kind of prophetic because, you know, like, artists used to be heavily featured on radios, and that's how they got their name out there. It's how they got their music out there. And then, you know, MTV started doing music videos, and then there's like this shift. People are tuning into MTV and listening to the radio less and less. That was their thought process, but I think it was still 50-50. I still listen to the radio and watched MTV, so, I mean, I got a double dosage of my music, so there you go. On this day, 1987, Mike Tyson defeats Tony Tucker. As such, he is unanimously recognized as the heavyweight champion in all three boxing organizations. That would be the World Boxing. It's the WBC. Now I can't remember what the C stood for. WBA, which is the World Boxing Association, and in the IBF, the International Boxing Foundation. I had it on the tip of my tongue too. World Boxing. I don't know. Anyway, all three boxing organizations recognized him unanimously as the heavyweight champion of the world. 1996, American author George R.R. Martin publishes his first installment of his Game of Thrones series of books. That first series was Song of Fire and Ice. In 2005, King Fahd, he became the Saudi Arabian king in 1982. King Fahd dies at the age of 82. He is succeeded by his half-brother, Abd Allah. I believe we had spoken about these two recently for some reason or another. Maybe it was one of their birthdays or something. I don't know. I can't remember. Or maybe it was... Did Fahd usurp the throne from his dad in 82? I can't remember. No, it's back in there somewhere. So, our featured event today for August 1st, it's August 1st, 1589. And what happened is that Henry III of France, he is stabbed by an assassin. Well, who's this assassin? This assassin would be a Jacobin friar by the name of Jacques Clement. But he would die the following day, only after announcing who his successor was going to be. And that successor, he acknowledged his successor as his Bourbon ally, Henry of Navarre, also known as Henry IV. He was a Huguenot as his successor. And what is a Huguenot? I actually had to look that up. So a Huguenot is basically a group of Protestants who are persecuted for their belief. That's like a basic, bare bones, nutshell, example of who they are or what they are. So, yeah, that is this day in history. We'll do it again for tomorrow, August 2nd. Have a blessed day. Take care. Be safe. And we'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye.